We've got another great story to share with you today, an inspiring journey into local government leadership, because that's what we do here on the HaltingWinter Podcast. We tell the stories behind the titles, the unique paths into public service, and the moments that shape how these leaders show up, even when the work gets heavy. Every day, local government quietly makes modern life possible, and behind every service is a person doing work that often goes unseen. This is the HaltingWinter Podcast, and I'm Seth Winterhalter. Every week, I have the pleasure of sitting down with local government leaders from across the country that remind us where government really lives, locally, doing the work that truly matters. This is the work that builds belonging. Before we hear today's conversation, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Tyler Technologies has been exclusively serving the public sector since 1998, partnering with cities and counties to make their work more manageable, more connected, and more effective. From smarter budgeting to artificial intelligence, Tyler equips local governments with software and solutions that help leaders serve with clarity, efficiency, and impact. You can explore a variety of free resources at tylertech.com/winter. That's tylertech.com/winter. And if today's conversation resonates with you, I want to invite you to check out the Municipal Leadership Development Circle. It's a global community of local government leaders who are committed to growing together, supporting one another, and leading well in the middle of municipal pressure. You can learn more about the MLDC at haltingwinter.com/MLDC. That's haltingwinter.com/MLDC. And now, let's turn to today's conversation. My guest on the podcast today is Bryan Poster, Borough Manager in Telford Borough, Pennsylvania, all the way back out to the PA. Bryan, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you on today.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, we've had on Jamie Gwynn over in New Hanover Township. Christopher Gargas is one of my favorite humans, the marathon man himself over in Soulbury Township. And now we get you, and I'm looking forward to diving into not only what's going on in Telford, but specifically, I think your story is going to resonate with our audience today because you spent so many years in IT. And that's a unique path into city management. We don't hear that often. And it's so relevant for today with AI, with data centers, but also I think for the struggle of local gov who oftentimes has budget issues, that wants to be cutting edge, but can't take the risk to be cutting edge, can't take the risk of failure. But also it's hard sometimes when people have been in positions for, I remember we had on Katie Zeitz, Benzie County in Michigan, and she came into a city as a clerk, and the clerk there had worked for 30 years. And they were still using typewriters because that's what she knew. And she didn't really want to change. And it was like, dude, this is like 2010 and we're still using typewriters. I mean, it was pretty crazy, but this is kind of the realities. And so I look forward to you diving into this and kind of showing the light on what is IT inside local gov. Why should we be thankful for that? And what are some of the challenges and opportunities there? But before we get to that professional reality, take us back to the very beginning. Help us get to know you as a person before we get to know you professionally. Tell us about where you were born and kind of the childhood that shaped you.
I was born in this area. Actually, if you draw a straight line from my office, it might be a mile to Grandview Hospital, which is where I was born. I lived in Lansdale for about 5 years, and then I moved up to West Rock Hill with a Sellersville mailing address, which Sellersville and West Rock Hill are both one of our neighbors here in Telford. Went to Penridge High School, graduated in 1990, football, wrestling, nothing out of the ordinary. Ended up going to Lock Haven University in central Pennsylvania. If you've never been there, if you blink, you'll miss it. And it's well known for being about 45 minutes from State College. That's about what it's known for. It was a great experience there. I think I originally wanted to be a health and phys ed teacher, and that just didn't pan out for me. And then I got my start in local government in 2000. And I started at Lansdale Borough. Interestingly enough, I actually started in their wastewater department. technology wise, they needed someone to televise their sewer lines. They were just getting started with it. I had a friend who worked for the treatment plant there, and he had asked me if I'd be interested, and he introduced me to the superintendent. We hit it off. I started in the wastewater department to July of 2000. Started televising sewer lines, digitizing a lot of their paperwork, whether it just be moving it from paper into PDFs or creating databases that they had never had before, where instead of having to go through, like a bunch of folders to look for one Vine Street, they'd be able to just type one Vine Street into an Excel spreadsheet. So they were thinking that was like magic at the time. But it really isn't. And now everybody's so used to using Excel. It's just technology is a miraculous help to in any business, whether it's public or private. You almost have to have it these days. I was their technology director after a couple of years and started doing GIS maps. That was kind of the sole reasoning why I kind of moved into. They had never had a technology director, so I kind of started doing both. Quickly realized that, hey, I can't do this big of a borough and do GIS, so I had to hire a second person. I think by the time I left in 2023, we had 4 employees in my department, which when I started wasn't a department. So in a short amount of time, we created a department. But as you know, technology goes across all departments. So I kind of had my hand in everything. And I think that's what kind of got me started thinking like, hey, I know I know a little about a lot of topics with multiple departments. So I kind of thought, maybe I want to do this manager thing. So I talked to a couple people in the field, and they thought it was a great idea. Got my name out there. Started in 2023 in the borough of Rockledge. It's surrounded on 3 sides by Abington Township, and then on the 4th side by Northeast Philadelphia. So that was about an hour and 5 minutes one way from my house. So I did that for a little over 2 years. And then when something opened up here in Telford, which is about 13 minutes from my house, which I now live in Quakertown, this was a no-brainer for me. And when I interview for places, or when I talk about Telford Borough, or even Rockledge still, or Lansdale, about the importance of technology. And that's kind of what I really sold myself on here is technology and communication. I think those are like 2 things that are super important.
Oh man, so many things to unpack. I want to go back just very quickly. That idea of, can you imagine sending in today an intern who would come into your city into to have to go through file cabinets instead of typing something in? It'd probably feel like they were sent into a Narnia wardrobe, but instead of it'd be the Cold Witch, Narnia version. Yeah. They would get lost. I'm like, what am I doing? What do I even do? So talk to us, go back to when you're growing up, is there any awareness of local gov? Did you have any family members that might have served, or was it kind of like all of us, we're just kind of oblivious to the things that provide modern life?
Not a clue. Just like everybody else, they know where they pay taxes. That's it. And actually, some of them don't know where they pay taxes. Some of them live in our mailing address, but don't live in the borough. So we kind of have to politely tell them, hey, you're in West Rock Hill, or you're in Franconia Township, or, we try and help them out as much as we can. But when we're not the provider for their municipality, there's really nothing I can do within their municipality to help them out. I had no idea that this is the direction I would be going. I had no idea we'd be televising sewer lines. And then I had no idea that I would move into technology department. Yeah, it's been a pleasant surprise. I will say that.
I love it. You're growing up, you're an athlete, it just seems like Pennsylvania, again, both Jamie and Christopher, I think athletes. I mean, Christopher's like Mr. Marathon Man, still running the Boston Marathon this year. Like, what did I think you said you wanted to become, you thought you were going to become a PE teacher, a gym teacher?
Yeah.
And so how in the world did IT, is it just, you needed a job and that's kind of what opened up and you said, I'll figure it out? What happened there?
Yeah, pretty much. It's kind of funny how I actually met my wife is, I was teaching in a preschool at the time when I first got out of college. And then preschools just, they don't pay enough. But males in preschool are, kind of like me in government, the anomaly. They're not, it's not the norm. And I loved it. If they would have been able to pay a lot more to survive on, I probably would have stayed in that field. I loved working with the kids. But I was actually going back for my master's because I was going to this time get a teaching degree. And then I had met my wife. She was an undergrad at the time. And that's how that kind of all started. And none of it had to do with government whatsoever.
And so this is so wild. And now I want to get, because this is fascinating. This is where I think we'll really kind of open people's eyes, especially for anyone who's not in local gov, who just listens to this podcast out of fascination. Televising sewer lines. What in the world is that? This is why I love local gov. We do the most random things, but they're all essential to provide these everyday services. What is that?
Yeah, a lot of people ask what do you mean? Do you go down there with like a camera on your head? And I'm like, no, that's not
live from pipe 3.
Yeah. But well, I always say, like, when I say I started in local government on the ground level, I actually started below ground level because I was in manholes in Lansdale Borough when I first started. So there were some of them that were 20 feet deep. And at the time, government, it was an opportunity that I thought was interesting. They had great benefits and I was just getting married and kind of needed them. But I was interested in the actual field. Wastewater part, not so much. The technology piece, yes. But wastewater actually became interesting to me because, nobody cares when you flush the toilet. You just want to make sure it disappears and it doesn't clog and you're good. And, kind of a joke we had in the treatment plant was if sewer lines ran on utility poles, people would care more about them. But because they're underground and no one sees them, it just gets dismissed. So, I mean, that's how I kind of got into that. And I still use it here. I mean, yeah. Well,
the technology, again, people do not understand. They would just have no scope. Like you said, especially even water lines, sewer lines, underground. I have some friends in the water world. We had, in fact, Justin Stockton on East Stockton Water District in Stockton, California, outside of Sacramento. And just the technology, all these cameras, all these sensors, and all these reservoirs and all the, what do you call that? The thoroughfares, that bring the water to us. I mean, just California, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, the water rights and just the technology. I mean, I was a part, I dated a gal for a while who was in the water world, and every morning she'd be on these like technological calls with all these people, and you'd have all these reports on, this is this, and this is this, and here's the water levels of this. And it's just amazing because there's so many variables with weather and with, all kinds of things that affect that. And so it was just, again, I would say, like when you say, televising, there's all these sensors, all these things that you say, we just want it to flush and not come back up. But it takes a lot more, not only in these kind of technology, but just in the money that goes into the infrastructure. And that's one of the things that I love pointing out is when we kind of complain about taxes, you're not going to complain if your sewer doesn't work. You're not going to complain if you turn on your faucet and the water doesn't flow. I mean, these are essential realities to now modern day living that the normal person has no idea how to get on their own or how to function on their own. And so, and the infrastructure though that's necessary to make that happen. And that's the issue. A lot of cities, their infrastructure is failing. They're just trying to put Band-Aid after Band-Aid instead of really having the financial and the time to rebuild and to build new stuff that would actually last further. So it's one of those. It's a challenge. I like to point out so that we just appreciate. Our taxes are they're stretched. Local government specifically. I'm not going to talk about state and federal, but I think local gov, we're stretching the dollar to the utmost to try to really make our communities awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of unique. I kind of didn't really answer your question about televising sewer lines when you asked, but when you're down there, you're looking for, crack pipe, root entry, infiltration, because all of those things, kind of combine to increase the infiltration of outside groundwater getting in. And it's not efficient to treat rainwater when you're in a sewer treatment plant. You just want to treat dirty water. You don't want to be treating. But when your sewer plant goes from like 2 million gallons to 20 million gallons in 20 minutes, you've got a problem. And my job was to try and go out and find those problems. And hopefully we also grouted. Not many municipalities do that, where they actually pull up on a joint. There's like 2 balloons on each side, and it blows up, and you air test it. If it leaks air, it's going to leak water. So you turn on this pump that puts 2 liquids together. It creates a gel. It actually pushes it through and seals it from the outside. I found that so phenomenal when I was doing it. I just thought it was amazing. Not everybody thinks it's as cool as I do. I get it. But if you can save yourself digging up a road, I mean, people, you dig a road up, you're talking, $20,000 just to start before you even replace anything. So I think it's an important thing. You see a lot of third parties doing it now, which then it makes it cheaper because you don't have to buy your own TV truck and have dedicated staff to doing it. But yeah, that's why I kind of thought it was pretty cool. And people are like, what are you even looking for? And I was tell them, and they're like, oh yeah, we didn't even think about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Again, this is why I think local gov is so cool, because there's so many different kind of fascinations. I find that one of the things we're looking at is doing what we call the HaltingWinter tour, and going out. And when I speak at conferences, aligning those with like high schools and colleges, just to tell kids, like, I don't think you understand that. I don't think there's a passion area, an area of interest that we can't find a place for in local gov. It's that expensive. Scientists and engineers and televising, sewers. And so tell us about it. This is interesting. I think you're the first technology person we've had on that's been in one city for over 2 decades, especially 2000 to 2003. I mean, you think about, I remember going through 1999, everyone thought the world was going to collapse when the calendar went to 2000 and, nothing, we didn't know the technology. You've been there now through the not only the housing, collapse in 2008, COVID, but technology has changed. I mean, think that was before, you were there before the iPhone. And now, like, if someone gave someone an iPhone 4 to have to use, they'd probably jump off a bridge. Tell us about it. What are some of the cool projects? What has it been like to be the manager of technology over a department in a city, to see those changes, to bring about, to try to encourage change? What have been some of the challenges? What were some of the opportunities?
Well, it's always difficult. Change is difficult for a lot of people, myself included. You get accustomed to doing something that works, and you're like, well, why would I fix it? It already works. Well, I mean, there's always a better way. And if we find out there isn't a better way, then at least we exhausted, that opportunity to make sure. So when you're talking about staff who had been there for 40 plus years, it's very difficult to try and get them to change, to use an iPad, to not print an email out and put it into a folder when you can just keep it electronically. Those were difficult things to try and do. And it doesn't sound like much, but it was some of my greatest successes were getting people who didn't use technology and just seeing them succeed and almost looking at their faces like I did it. And I like knowing that I had a part in that. Yeah, I mean, some of the interesting things that maybe I went through is we built a new building in Lansdale, probably, I don't know, 2012, 2013, somewhere in there. And I had to take all the servers, and we had 23 servers at the time, because we had our police department servers on there too. And let me backtrack a little bit. Our municipality was unique in there. They have their own electric infrastructure. So when you live in Lansdale, you get Lansdale Electric. So we owned the poles. So we actually had a project where we ran fiber and put a fiber ring in and connected all of our buildings. We probably had maybe 6 or 7 buildings connected, and went from, 6 or 7 different internet costs per month to one. And we ran off of the one, which was a savings already. And then when we had to move all the servers, it was an interesting project. Very delicately move the servers and then recreate a server room in one of the existing buildings where it was like our utilities campus. So we had put in trailers, like temporary trailers for the administration staff to work. And that's where everybody came, paid their bills, things like that. But we still had to provide them with the server for that. So it was kind of interesting moving all that over, and then moving it back when the new building was there. So that was interesting too. And actually at the time it was a lot easier because we just bought new servers when we were in the new building, which was in part of the project. But the building they have there in Lansdale now is, it's spectacular. The technology that was put into that building, and I'm glad to say I had a part in it, it is just incredible. We have people who, I'll still go back there for meetings and stuff. And if they're having like a trouble with their technology, John Ernst, who's the borough manager there, he'll say, "Hey, can you take a look at that?" So I still will take a look at things if I have to.
I love it. It's so good. Well, it's one of the things to highlight in local gov, like we've talked about already. There's so much underground infrastructure and day-to-day services that people just don't realize. But even I'm sure inside local gov, inside the organization, people are using the internet. People, nowadays, especially, we're so reliant on it. If the internet goes out, we kind of like pull our hair. Like, what am I going to do today? Like
nobody knows what to do.
No one knows. And so it's so cool to mention, like, what you did in Lansdale is, even though you're not probably going to get a parade or a statue out front for it, you feel good knowing, man, that was a cool project to be a part of. And the impact is just, that's why I think that the local government impact is just like huge in what you are impacting in today and in the future, that people both inside the organization and out into the community get to participate in. And so there's just, I don't know if there's a more missional work but we have to kind of, that's why this podcast exists. We have to kind of shine the light on it and go, oh, that's right. Oh, that is cool that I got to be a part of, man. And that's why I love looking back and remembering the cool projects you get to be a part of.
Yeah, it was a great time for me, and I kind of created mentors on the way for me. There was a manager there who she's actually the one who, she was an interim manager, and she came down and met at each department with all the staff and talked to us about what was going on and actually asked us questions, and we were able to ask questions. And I always admired that, because she kind of came to our turf rather than us having to go there. And I think that meant a lot more that she did that. But yeah, it was it was interesting. You never, I always say, nobody ever calls you or emails you to tell you, hey, thanks, my computer turned on this morning. It's usually my email doesn't work, and this is the most important thing ever in the world of technology. So you kind of get used to that. I think that actually helped me in what I'm doing now, is not to react quickly, not to get upset when a resident is upset, because obviously something's bothering them. Something's not working for them. My job is to try and figure out what it is and how can I help them to rectify that situation. So
one thing I've learned from hosting hundreds of conversations with local government leaders is this: the challenges never stop changing. So many conversations seem to come back to the same question: how do you keep moving your community forward when there's never enough time, money, people, or certainty? You're always looking for ways to work smarter, make better decisions with limited resources, and prepare for what's coming next, all while still delivering the services your residents count on every day. That is why I'm grateful for partners like Tyler Technologies. Tyler has put together 3 free ebooks specifically for local government leaders that I think are well worth your time. One explores how your team can use AI to eliminate repetitive work and improve your efficiency. Another highlights how cloud technology can help modernize your operations. And the third focuses on how your organization can remain resilient, even when things don't go according to plan. You can download all 3 ebooks for free, along with several other resources, all at tylertech.com/winter. Again, tylertech.com/winter. And if you're going to be attending the NACO annual conference, it's in New Orleans this July, stop by booth number 231 and connect with the Tyler team. They would love to learn more about your community and the unique challenges that you are facing. While you're there, if you'd like to see how AI is being used in an actual government setting, make sure to attend the Technology Innovation Forum. It's featuring Fulton County and Tyler Technologies. You're going to hear how they are putting these tools to work in their day-to-day operations and what they're learning along the way. To learn more about AI that works to make your county or your city government far more efficient, visit tylertech.com/winter. Now, let's get back to the conversation. So good. Talk about, you kind of had mentioned it already, change is hard. We all kind of struggle with change because we like our comforts. And like you say, you can even be a part of a revolutionary new thing, and then you get comfortable with that and then fight against the new thing, the next revolutionary a person wants to bring up. How, especially with technology, you mentioned like there's one thing to look at, how do we make sure that we are not so far behind that we're, again, losing money. Like, again, thinking about printing out emails, how much paper are we just wasting when we can just keep that on our computer, right? There are cost savings. There are reasons to stay up to speed. Local government's never going to be on the cutting edge because that's not kind of its role. That's the role of, I think, the private sector, and there is risk and there is money, realities that we need to be wise stewards. And yet, what is the tension, especially now when it seems like every day some new company's coming out with a new AI or a new product that I'm sure can help inside local government? How do you stay current? How would you encourage an IT person, department head, et cetera, to stay current without feeling like they get in the trap of just having to know everything and about every new thing that's out there? How do they weed out the opportunities versus just the overwhelm?
I kind of do that here too. We don't have a technology director or anything. We're kind of a smaller borough, so that's one of my hats, along with the other 37 that I wear. One thing I do, even if I talk to a salesperson on the phone, I understand you're excited about your product. I get it. But you need to send me an email so I can review it and make sure that it's what I'm looking for. And I want to see what it does, not necessarily hear from you what it does. Is there always going to be a better way out there, or a better product? Probably. I mean, you can't sit and worry about that. What you have to do is make sure that you do what fits your borough budget the best. I mean, ultimately, that's the first, how much does this thing cost? And then on top of it, does it make us more efficient, or does it make us, less efficient? And if your answer is less efficient, there's no reason to do it. You're probably doing it a better way. Now, since I've been here, we've installed a new utility billing software. I mean, there's different things in different locations. I did the same thing in Rockledge. Like I kind of saying before, that's kind of my push when I come on. Is I'm a unique character where typically managers come from either finance or like a community development. I come from a technology sector where I'm looking more towards the efficiency of, one, can the employees use the equipment that we have, and try and get things that are user friendly, easy to use, and still, being able to put that into your budget and not have it, break the bank. And now we can't, hire somebody, or we, can't get something else that we need. So
yeah, we have a flashy technology, but now we have no one to actually run it.
Yeah. Or you get a flashy technology because you just want something new. It's that if it's relevant and it needs to be done, I would say yes. But there's always going to be some new technology out there that somebody's using, that probably works for them. Just because it works for them doesn't necessarily mean that it'll work for your municipality.
What do you think? You mentioned, you're the IT guy because you don't have that department there in Telford. And I think we have many city managers, administrators that listen that are in smaller cities and towns, villages, boroughs like that. What would you, I think this would be a great thought point for them, because again, they're wearing all these hats, they're getting overwhelmed, and maybe there's a tool. What do you think is one of the technology areas that they might consider that would probably be, maybe you would think, is if the city's not using this, it's probably behind. It's not, like, what would be one of the best tools that you would think, in looking at IT and local gov, that they might consider that they hadn't thought of, that would probably bring some relief to their team?
Yeah, well, I think one of the most important things is something we're actually going through right now. So our municipality is unique. We have the borough side, and we also have an authority which provides our water and sewer. We just went out to get quotes for a document management system, because all of our records are paper down in the basement, and it's just full of drawers of papers. And you were talking about earlier having to go to a drawer and an intern. And I kind of chuckled to myself, because I'm like, that's us. Like, literally, that's us right now. But once we get this project done, there's software where you literally just go in, type in a word, it pulls, with the OCR recognition, and it just pulls that up and finds everything that has the word street in it, which I think is probably one of the most handy things. It's not cheap, but I would say digitizing your records probably is like one of the most important things to do, just for your staff, to make everything a little bit more efficient. Having to go through files and stuff, that's a pain. Nobody wants to do that.
And I think that can be the hard thing with technology. You can look at the initial price tag and go, gosh, it's so much, it's not worth it. You have that, and now you're digitized, and now you're just looking at probably like minor updates, in the speed of not only saving your staff, pulling out their hair and looking like us with no hair anymore because it's just so stressful to go down.
This is what happened.
That's right. Going down to the basement of Narnia. Instead, though, think about the customer service. And I know Chris Gilbert over in Springfield Township in Ohio talks about this all the time. Like, the government's got to do a better job of customer service. And I think part of that is time, the ability to speed up their questions, their issues, and that technology can help that because it gives you that at your fingertips to be able to figure out because you can't hold all that. And I think that's kind of it's interesting to meet city clerks and city managers who've been in the chair for 30, 40 years. It's like, wow, these beacons of knowledge. Nowadays, the turnover is so much quicker. And if you come into a new city and you have no idea, you've never been there, you never lived there, and you're supposed to all of a sudden be this holder of knowledge, that's where technology is a huge win.
Yeah, I agree with that. One of the things we're going through right now is that older sector of employee who's going to retire. We probably have 10 people within the next 5 years that are going to retire at some point. How do we get all that information, 35, 40 years of knowledge? How do we get that out of their head? Well, using technology is trying to get things into established technologies like our GIS, where, you don't have to have the guy who remembers where the one sewer line is because there's an apple tree and a dog that barks at you. You can just go on an iPad and walk over and go, oh, right, it's right here. So I think trying to get that staff to understand the importance of it is, hey, we're not trying to push you out the door, but what we're trying to do is prepare, and we need your information, and we don't need it to go with you. We need it to stay here. And that's a hard thing to do. And that's like the main thing we're trying to do here is that, and create good SOPs. There's so many different things, menial that you do, and how to do it. But if you try to teach somebody else how to do it, it looks like they have two left hands. And I'm the same way. I need to see it. I need to read it. So if I have something on a piece of paper, not a piece of paper, if I have something on a computer that I can read, that gives me a little bit more confidence that I'll be able to do that. So.
That's such a great point about institutional knowledge. I think of Bill Wagner in Arcola, Illinois, who recently had a long tenured public works director leave. And that was our joke when we chat is, here's a guy who knows every spot, like you said, the apple tree and the dog that barks, and he can speak to, he knows how to speak to this pipe to get it working again. And again, these people who are leaving now, and like you say, that stuff is all in their head. It's really not transferable, and they're supposed to be retired. We don't need to be calling them all the time asking how to find and do. And so, such a great point. Let's go to your story, because I want to get into I think this will be encouraging to maybe someone who's in IT who goes, I've never even considered management. When in your journey, in one of the things you said already, and I'll highlight again, is IT touches every department. Everybody needs email. Everybody's got a computer. Everybody, again, working on the servers and whatnot. So you're probably going, fixing and, updating. And so you get this unique view about, and you also are kind of seeing what they're doing. What are the challenges? How are they communicating? I love what you said earlier about you didn't feel like you kind of had an insight into these departments. It's not like you were the master skilled of all these, but I think that's also what I hear over and over from the best city managers is I think when you are skilled at one area, the tendency then to lean into that area to maybe the neglect of others. But you have this view of all of it. When in your journey did you start to really consider going, oh, maybe I want to look into management? And when well, let's start there.
I mean, I don't know if there was like an exact time. I remember my first interview I went on. I believe it was actually for New Hanover when Jamie got the position there. And I'll tell you, I was the worst interview ever. It was terrible. I was almost embarrassed of myself. I wasn't ready. I didn't know enough about the management side. And it's an eye opener at that point. So then you kind of have to go back and to the drawing board, come up with a different plan. There were as I moved along further and I gained more knowledge and started to realize that I can learn things from other people. Kind of what you just said. I don't need to be the smartest person in the room. What I do need to know is how do I harness the smartest people to work for us and our team. And that's one of the things I stress here is being a team, taking ownership of your job, being proud of what you do, and not just look at it as so. And I try to explain to my guys, like, hey, I was there. I did the labor end of it, which I think is also a unique thing is I've seen it from both ends, where I was just a laborer who, management, and I want to say, because now I see it from the other side, but that whole thing of, hey, it's us versus them, they don't know what we're doing. And I think my job is to try and let my staff know that, hey, I know what you're doing. I know how hard it is. And I've been there. So I think all of that knowledge and learning from other leaders through the years, probably in that, probably right around COVID is when that was another interesting thing, was trying to get everybody to work from home. That was especially when we only had X amount of laptops to hand out to people. I was one of the lucky people who got to come into work because I was like one of the only people who was in work. It was like me, the manager, and like another manager who was like in a completely different wing. We would just call each other on the phone or get on like a Zoom just so we could talk to each other. Mm-hmm. But I think at that point, that's when I kind of started thinking more seriously about it. And I think going through a couple interviews with one of the local recruiters around here, they're a consulting firm. And she was great. She kind of pulled me aside and said, this isn't a matter of if you get a management job. This is a matter of when. You interview great. The two positions that I didn't get were positions where they were in need of something else at the time. And I think the old me wouldn't have been mature enough to see that. But now, seeing it now, I'm like, okay, I totally understand. The one was in financial trouble. They had a finance director. They needed that gentleman. They didn't need me with all these new ideas and technology because they had no money to get technology. So, when you start to realize that and be okay with failing and just keep trying, and that's the athlete side of me coming out is, I hate losing probably more than I like winning. I can't stand to fail. And if I can, I will other people to succeed, if possible. So
you said a couple really good things. The first is just to reiterate to the audience of those who might be pursuing or thinking about management. It is getting out there and just interviewing, because you can do all the kind of, talk with the consultants. You can do all the kind of prep until you go do it. It's just a unique environment to do that. Because it's also a public. That's what's so odd. It's like a job interview that's totally public. And so it's kind of wild. But it teaches you. And the other thing you just said that is so brilliant, just like a city, I have been talking about this quite a bit this last year, that I think the cities that are really thriving, especially if they've gone through hardship, is they find a unique identity. They're not trying to be somebody else. They're not looking at the bigger city around them, trying to be them and just duplicate their plan. They're going, who are we? Who do we want to be? Who do we want to live here, work here, play here? And what does that mean for us, for our unique identity? And I think the same is for managers. A city, especially if it needs something, like you say, it might not be a good fit for you. So don't shove, it's like the Cinderella. Don't shove your foot into the shoe that's not going to fit. And then now the city's disappointed that it's not, moving to where it wants. And you're disappointed because you're like, gosh, this is not, according to my strengths and skills. I think that's a real patience in it, perseverance, patience, but still the zeal to get after it. Like you say, that competitive spirit. Really good points there.
Yeah. I think that is important, is knowing your strengths, how to utilize them, and being able to read the room, when you go into an interview, and what does this municipality need? It surely didn't, the one I'm discussing didn't need me. It needed someone with financial background. I'm glad I interviewed. I thought it was great. I saw one of the council members at a budget training, which I thought was kind of ironic at the time. It was great. I talked to him about it, and he said, they had done some good work since they hired the new guy. And I was glad to hear that they were successful. And he was super happy to hear that I had gotten a job too, because that was my first gig down in Rockledge, and very small borough, but needed help, needed to know how to be its own local government.
Well, let's talk specifically about that. So Lansdale is Montgomery County, but it's 1 hour, I think, west of Trenton, New Jersey. So for the national audience, it's kind of think New Jersey. I mean, you're obviously north of Philly too, but now when you go to the borough of Rockledge, this is going to be your first bureau manager position, and this is like 10 miles north of Philadelphia. So this is right just above there, but it's so south of Lansdale. Again, 2,600. Tell us about what it was like to be in the bureau manager position now for the first time, and what that city, why did Rockledge fit for you?
Well, fit for kind of two reasons. One, they were behind technology wise. Just a little borough that never really had the time or the money or even the desire to catch up. They're kind of a unique situation. They're kind of their own little entity. And when you say being near Philadelphia, if I looked out my window, I could see the Philadelphia border. So I was literally that close to Northeast Philly. The matter of fact, the 7-Eleven I went to almost every day was in Philadelphia. But I don't think they knew. And I think it's funny because the consultant that I was talking about earlier, she's the one who actually, who kind of got me in there and got me an interview, was like, her first thing was, they don't know what they don't know. So we were both this was my first gig, but I had known a lot from Lansdale. So what I tried to do was bring some of those ideas, but on a much, much smaller scale. Mm-hmm. They're definitely not Lansdale. They're much, much smaller. But it was still a good fit. The council, I had great council people there. They wanted to learn. It was a lot of turn to me and be like, can we do this? And, being able to manage the sunshine laws where, hey, you can't reply all to an email. It doesn't matter if it was accidental, you can't do that. So I think that's one of the things that I was able to help them, is how to be a functioning, smaller local government. So, and they have a new manager now who's great. I was actually in on the interview process, and he had many years in New Jersey, and he is kind of his like retirement gig. Super great guy. I think he's been doing a great job down there.
That's cool. And obviously the move to Telford, you had mentioned before, it was you were doing the hour commute. And so I'm sure that was getting long. And that's one of the things I talk about is work-life balance. Probably my signature keynote is called Balance is BS. There's no such thing as work-life balance, especially in management, because it's such a unique job, because you got evening meetings, you got weekend community events, and you're always on. I was a pastor for a decade, and I think that the life of a pastor and the life of a bureau manager are a lot similar. Whereas, people see you for the title. They don't see you necessarily as a person. They see, this is the person who's going to fix my pothole and fix my,
Yep.
IT or whatever it is. And so, obviously the move closer to home. Tell us about Telford now. This is, again, directly north of Lansdale. So you're right back, but it's in two, I think you're in Bucks and Montgomery County. So that's always unique to be in two counties,
Yeah.
The communication and realities. Yeah. Tell us about Telford and what you've been there for a little over a year now. What's going on in Telford?
Unique is an interesting word to use for being in two counties. It's very difficult to know who to turn to, especially when you're on one side and you got to go to Bucks County. And if you're on the other side of Main Street, you're going to Montgomery County. Now, we are considered Montgomery County because that's, I guess, where we originally had fallen. But I mean, one of the things that we're doing here is kind of the same thing that I did in Rockledge, is trying to is bring them forward with technology. That's one of the things that we're working on, discussing creating a downtown destination, which is an issue here because when you drive through Telford, it really doesn't give you that Main Street little town feel where you see those decorative lights or, flower pots or, crosswalks that are, and I'm not saying those things are necessary, but it is visually appealing. I think people feel genuinely good about it. And then we have an old SEPTA line that runs through here. It's only used for just transport trains now. There's no commuter trains at all. And on the one side of Main Street where Main and Broad come together, it's just two sets of tracks. One of them's abandoned. There's some weeds there. And my guys know weeds are my nemesis. I can't stand weeds. So they're all like, oh, we got to go out and get the weeds before Bryan sees them, which is kind of funny. I don't get that mad about it, but I just kind of laugh about it that they already know I don't like weeds. So that's a good thing. But, we're trying to create more walkability here. There's some spots in town where in the kind of remote areas where there's some places where there aren't sidewalks, which is almost unheard of in a borough. But, our job is to try and figure out how do we get those kids who maybe want to walk to school on the other side of town. Right now, it's not safe for them. So, we're trying to come up with a couple projects to do that, do a Main Street there along that railroad tracks I was telling you about. We're looking to put in a rail trail that will, and kind of beautifying the center of town. Probably going to reach out to some of the business owners and see if we can do some grants to help with their facades. They're kind of older buildings, maybe clean them up, and they'll feel much better about their buildings, and give people a chance. Okay, we got them walking now. Where do we get them walking to? And then when we get there, how do we get them to stay? So getting the businesses here, keeping the businesses here is definitely different for me, is more of that community development thing, which I really like a lot. It's something new for me. So they had a planning commission that met when they needed to. And I took the model that we used in Rockledge, where we just met 5 times a year, no matter what. This way, we at least got together, talked about it. We're putting together a 5-year plan through them. So I think they're feeling like everyone's included now, which is great. Like the planning commission talks to council and they talk to me. And I think we're in an exciting portion, but we're also in that waiting portion, where we don't have the money. We're in the planning stages of it. Is how are we going to get the money for it? And then once we do it, what are we going to do? Because it's our Main Street. We start blocking up Main Street. There's going to be some people who are pretty mad about it. But I'm hoping in the end, they all love the finished product and how nice the center of Telford will look when we're done.
It's so cool. And I think you said a couple of things here so brilliant. And I think back to Van Buren, Maine, Luke Dyer, the town manager there. And again, just, Van Buren was just kind of falling apart. And he just said, why not us and why not now? And he started with getting everyone together, though. I think that's the issue, is when, again, you can see that and you can go, okay, we just need to do it. But when you bring people apart, then you probably don't have as many mad, people upset about whatever, because they're a part of it. They're going, no, okay, we get it. It's going to be closed for such and such, but we're going to have sidewalks now. So it's easier for people to shop at our stores. We're going to have new facades that look fresh and inviting. And you just get people going, that public-private partnership, because again, we can't do it alone. Local gov doesn't have the dollars to do it alone, nor does it have the time. But it also shows this is what local government does, is drive so many things. You got to get public works to figure out sidewalks, and planners and engineers. And you got to figure out, okay, what do they have? We got to get that committee together, talk about facades, and how do we have it look, similar. So it's not just, some weird, it's like an Olympia here. I walk downtown, I'm just like Stevie Wonder's there.
Yeah.
Looking at the artist is just crazy. And so, yeah, like local gov though is this unique driver of that, not only of the vision, but also the bringer together of these groups. And so I just think it's such a cool thing that local gov does that I don't people don't understand. They just think, my store did it, or it just happened, the sidewalk just, appeared overnight.
Yeah. I think that's right. I think, getting together and determining, do they want to do this? Is this the direction that they want to go? And that was the first couple planning commission meetings was, I have a spectacular assistant manager, and she is going to make a great manager someday. I hope not too soon, but she will. And she is a planning. That's what her degree is in. And we sat down and came up with some ideas, and then presented them to the planning commission, and they just went crazy for it. And I think that's a good feeling when we know we hit the spot. We talked about it on social media, put it on the website. We get great reviews from it. People really seem to be on board with the ideas. I think sometimes one of the issues is things don't move fast enough for them. Mm-hmm. But that's with anything. It just, they want it done today, but it can't be, especially when you're working with taxpayer money. You really have to be conscious of what you're doing. And I think planning and staging of the projects are like the most important things to do. Is, can you afford this in the year 2026? And then we can shift something to beginning of 2027. Yeah.
I have this unique pleasure, this unique opportunity to meet with thousands of local government leaders from across the nation every year through conferences and workshops and the podcast. Just these interviews, these conversations are just so insightful. And one of the things I have learned about local government leaders is this: the best leaders are lifelong learners, not because they have all the answers. It's because they understand that leadership, that journey of leadership, is never finished. Every challenge, every difficult conversation, every budget season, every organizational change or disruption is another opportunity to grow. That's why this summer we're doing something different inside the Municipal Leadership Development Circle. We're launching a special summer series called Stories That Shape Leaders. You know that every week I take a best-selling book, usually a business book, and we break down its insights and apply them to local gov. This summer, we're taking biographies, memoirs, timeless leadership books that don't necessarily fall into those typical business, culture, strategy kind of genre. And we're going to explore the lives, the decisions, the failures, challenges, the lessons of leaders who navigated incredible adversity, who had to build trust when hope was fleeting, who inspired others not only to dream, but to take action, and who left a lasting impact. Leadership isn't shaped just through strategies and frameworks alone. It is shaped through stories. Stories that challenge assumptions, stories that expand our perspective, stories that help us become the leaders our communities need us to be. When you join the MLDC, you unlock the entire summer series, but you unlock even more. You unlock the weekly leadership content, the live mastermind sessions, the nationwide community of local government leaders, and all the MLDC resources, not just for the summer, but for the rest of 2026. If you are looking for a place to continue growing this summer while connecting with leaders who understand the unique challenges of local government, I would love to invite you to join us. Learn more at haltingwinter.com/MLDC or simply use the link in the show notes. Now, back to the conversation. It's a really good point. Like you say, the staging of things, because you don't want to leave it half finished. Then all of a sudden it's a community, eyesore instead of a forward movement. And I love too that not only is your story you leaning into your specific strengths and skill sets with IT, but I love this story about your assistant city manager. Like her thing is planning, and you're like, okay, use your gift to bring forward momentum here. How cool is that? You could be that, the temptation sometimes with leaders is just to kind of focus on their thing. But I love that you're going, okay, what's the team? How can we get you energized to bring leadership, to bring insight, and then you let them run? And so cool.
Yeah, I have great staff here. The assistant manager is great. We got right after I got here, like a month, my public works director said he's retiring, and I'm like, oh, okay. So we had to go through a search for that. That was like one of the first things that I had to do, and we went outside. But we interviewed, I think, 3 people from internally, and we ended up hiring someone internally. And he is phenomenal. The problem with him is I need to teach him how to be a manager now, not a worker. Like your management, you need to plan these things, and you don't have enough hours in the day to keep working. Where he'll come in on a call, and at night I'm like, why? Like you should be just kind of orchestrating that. At home, we have staff that can do that, and they fully expect to do that. But one of the funniest things that we have a great relationship, he and I, and we were interviewing for a new utility bill collector, and one of the resumes, this woman was just out of college. She has a master's degree. My assistant manager has a master's degree, and my public works director, and this is, our relationship is, how's it feel to be the dumbest person in the room? When I was in the room with them, and I was just like, wow, he's right. I am the dumbest person in the room. But it was just, you try and take a little bit from everyone, try and get everyone to have a say, because if they do, they're going to be vested in what they're doing. If they don't care about what they're doing, if it's just hey, I'm showing up to get paid for 8 hours. Yeah, that's great. You do need some employees like that, but you got to have people who are willing to take a chance. I always say I'd rather you, say you're sorry than ask for permission. And I know that sounds weird, but I don't care how many hammers they buy. If they need a hammer, go buy a hammer. If there's big decisions to be made, yes, I know it falls on me. And I think anything we collaborate on eventually falls on me. But I look forward to hearing what they have to say. Great ideas from people who've been here for 20, 30 years. And they're like, nobody's ever listened to me before. Mm. I'm like, well, that's not my style. And I'm not saying different styles for different, people. Just my way of doing it is, let's get everybody in the room. Let's throw everything on the table. Let's figure out how we can make this work. So that's kind of what I do.
You said 2 things that so resonate. I was invited to a Chamber of Commerce event last night to do some speaking and encouragement. And I talked to 2 people. I talked to the general manager of the restaurant where this was, just gorgeous, rooftop, environment. And he was talking about the values of their organization. He goes, our value, we have 2 things. And the first one is we just want to give world-class service. And the second is just be kind. And he goes, if my employer does something and they think that was the way to be kind, even if it maybe I would say, hey, we got to do that a different way. There's never a fault. That wasn't wrong because you believed you embodied the values. And that sounds like what you're like. Again, you just want people to do the work. And if they think, I think the manager, especially in a smaller bureau, village, town, etc., if you try to hold all the decision making, you're never going to move forward with anything because you're the plug in the pipeline. You've got to push authority to the people specifically on the front lines doing the work with, again, those smaller things. So they feel empowered to do the job, and it cuts down on time. It cuts down in already a bureaucratic, red tape environment. You got to find ways to get things faster than they are. And that's one of the ways is to empower and to give authority and decision making. And then the other thing you said that's so important is especially in leadership development, and the people who come up highly skilled, but then they become leaders of people instead of leaders of projects. And those are two radically different things. And what happens is, especially in the people who are more blue collar, public work, et cetera, is they end up getting in the weeds of the projects instead of the leadership of people. I do a ton of training on that. And it's just, I see that. I talked to a guy last night about that. He's blue collar, huge sign company, $25 million a year sign company. And he goes, that's my issue with leadership right now is they get stuck in the work of projects instead of people. And we've just got a culture. I could do it when it was small. I could touch everyone. Because the organization was that small. But as we've grown now, there's no way I can. I got to have these leaders doing what I do from a culture perspective. So two things are really, really good to chew on and think about in your organization. How are you doing that? How are you helping leaders be leaders of people instead of just projects? Let's close with this. I want to be mindful of your time. I always talk about work-life balance and how it's BS. There's no such thing as balance. And now, especially now that you've been in a position of bureau, maybe it was easier to kind of have boundaries and, shut off work. I'm sure you were getting calls all the time, though, as IT, like, hey, my server's not working. It's midnight. I need to email a counselor. How do you do that now? Like you say, you're not just, you wear so many hats. It's not just the IT. And I think a bureau manager of a bureau, I think Telford's about 5,000 people. What is your staff? How many staff members do you have in Telford?
I believe we have 29.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things. It's not just that you're wearing a lot of hats. It's that if someone needs help, right, you're going in, helping. Like, it's not like you're, waving at them out your window. It's like, you got to be a team that has some flexibility and some engagement. How do you, what have maybe you learned that's maybe more of a challenge now in the manager position with that? How do you take time for yourself? How do you take time for your relationships? How do you make sure that the work doesn't consume you?
It's difficult. I sometimes will have to tell myself, much like I did in Rockledge when I started there, was, Telford was able to exist from 1886 until, 2025 without Bryan Poster. So I'm pretty sure they can still continue. And I have to tell myself that every once in a while. Now it helps. Again, I say about my good staff here, my assistant manager is great. She's great for reminding me and kind of maybe talking me off the ledge every once in a while. And my boss at home, she's great too. She's like, hey, you need to step back and you're on vacation or your day's off, or she doesn't mind when I have things to do when I'm working. But when it's her time or family time, and I appreciate that, it's a struggle. We just recently went to Jamaica. I sadly took my laptop with me and I opened it up and one day and I got an email that I did not like, and she's like, why are you looking at that? And she said, close it. And I did. And I didn't look at it the rest of the time because I knew I probably wouldn't be leaving Jamaica if I continued to open up my laptop. So while yes, I do have some work-life balance that goes through my head, I'm also told what my work-life balance is. But I appreciate it. I wouldn't have it any other way. So
I love it. And that's, I think a strong spouse in that kind of work is a help, because again, I always talk about, municipal leadership, and especially city management is just like nothing else, because and that's why we have kind of ACMs, the assistant managers, who are kind of going, oh, I like this job. I don't think I want to step onto that, because it's not just, you're leader of some departments. Now you're a leader of all. It's now you're on this municipal tightrope, and you're the connection to electeds. And it's not like they all think alike. There's, 6, 7 heads, of the snake kind of snapping and biting. And then you've got your staff, and you've got department heads, and they're fighting for budget and resources and their thing. And then you got residents, and they all want different things, and business owners, and et cetera. And so that's a lot to manage. It's a lot of emails, coming in, and all it takes, it's kind of like that. What do they say? It takes I can't remember, 10 positives to overcome 1 negative. It's I'm sure in Jamaica, you open it up, it's 1 negative, and it's probably from someone who doesn't know anything about anything. And yet they're fiercely, adamant about their thing. And it's just like, man, doesn't anyone see how much I care? Doesn't anyone see I'm just trying to rest? And that's why it's so important, I talked to Gargus about this and Gwen about this, but like the things you guys are a part of, I know that there's some really healthy management groups that you guys are doing there, the consortiums. And I think that's where making sure that you have a network of other, specifically managers, because there's only one manager in Telford. It's not like you're going to go to a Chamber of Commerce event and vent and empathize with another person who it's just you. Like you're going to go in the closet and have your own Chamber of Commerce meeting, I guess, right?
Yep.
You got to kind of reach out and make time for that. And I think that's the thing I encourage is you can obviously, I think the temptation is, I don't have time for the conference. I don't have time for that luncheon. I'm so busy. Make the time, because your emotional, mental, physical health is what sustains your leadership. If you empty that tank, you may think I'm putting in that's my story. I was putting in so many hours thinking I was so effective. And all of a sudden I kind of had this out of body look at my life. And I was like, I'm a really bad leader, because I have nothing in my tank. I am pouring from nothing but fumes. My leadership is frustrated. It is not as positive and as healthy and as engaged as it should be. And that's what, it's hard, right? It's hard, especially in that servant leader mindset, because you feel shameful of taking time for yourself. But that's the reality, you have to.
Yeah, you do. You almost feel like, not that Telford's going to like crash and burn because I'm not here one day. But you do feel like, they pay me a good salary. I should be here. My council is great. They talk about work-life balance, and, say when you need time, you make sure you take time. So it is important. I wish I do a better job sometimes. Yeah, I do. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I love what I do. It's, yes, 25 things may go wrong, and I may have 25 people who are mad at me, but I try and focus on the, 1 or 2 people who say what a great job I did, or what a great job our staff did. And then focus on those successes. And I can still manage those ones where we were unsuccessful, and we can do better. But to keep focusing on them, it's not healthy. I think, taking this position has made me a better person. It allows me to stop and think more, rather than, I always say, when you listen to hear, not listen to respond. So I try and hear, a resident when they come in and are unhappy. Right now, alleys are our big problem here. They want the alleys taken care of. There's no ordinance in place. And one of my jobs is to ensure that 5-10 years down the road, when Bryan Poster isn't sitting in this seat, that whoever knows exactly what to do with the alleys. So we need to get something in place. And just by taking the time, and I went and walked 2 different alleys with 2 different residents, and they both said the same thing. Nobody's ever come out here and walked with us before and actually listened to us. It took 15 minutes of my time. I mean, Telford isn't big enough where, it takes me an hour to get somewhere. It took me 2 minutes to drive somewhere. I walked for 10 minutes with them up and down the alley. And they were happy. I was happy that they were happy. And they end up giving me not a pass, but they give you a break. They start to understand what all goes into, hey, because you're in government, there's 7 people who make the decision. It's just not up to me. My job is to carry out their wishes, and their job is to carry out their constituent wishes. So the residents. So in a way, it comes down to the resident anyway. And we just have to make sure that we make the right decision with the alleys. It's there's always going to be, I know there's going to be people who are not happy with, we didn't do enough or we did too much. I got to try and make, as many people as I can, okay with what we come up with and still maintain to keep it within our borough budget that we currently have. So
such a great point on 2 really key traits of an effective leader. The engagement of listening, really, like you said, listening to hear, not just to respond. You listened, but you did more with that. You gave your presence. And I think sometimes it's not just that when you give your presence, it even solves anything. It is, I think people just want to be heard, and presence means that you took the time then to be with them and to walk with them and to see it with them. And so they feel cared for. They feel, again, it's that kindness in action. Like, let me see. That doesn't mean we have to agree. And I think that's what we think sometimes. Oh, if I listen and turn this into a long, thing, or if I go there, I'm supporting that. Now I'm on, and that doesn't, like, we have so many assumptions in our head, I think, instead of just going, how do I engage? And how do I tell them what we can and can't do and what the process is going to be? And I think that solves oftentimes the issue, but we get in our heads and we don't even take those actions. So such good reminders.
Yeah. It saves the, 5 additional emails that I was going to get telling me we aren't doing anything. When they understand, they're like, okay, this takes time. We had, every month we have our meeting on the second Monday of every month, our regular council meeting. And we had a work session meeting that was the following week. I approached council president and said, hey, why don't we push it back 1 week? And we actually do like presentations and discussions in the workshop. And then every time we need to make, to pass an ordinance or resolution or make motions, we do that in what we would now call the business meeting. And we've done it for probably about 3 or 4 months now. We've talked nothing but alleys and most of them. But it's great. We have the same probably 2 or 3 people who come talk about the alleys. The one gentleman is the gentleman who I went out and visited, but now he's part of the process. And I think that's the important thing. And it's the important thing of how do you get these people into your building and be part of the process? It's so easy to sit behind a computer or a phone and make a comment on social media about, oh, they're not doing anything. And, if I were there, well, come in. We're not trying to be mean. We want your help. We literally want your help. So I think getting a chance to do that, get out there, talk to people, try and get more people into our building for a meeting, I think is important, and getting that citizen engagement. I think there's a problem in most municipalities. Like we said about people getting into local government, they never really thought about it. I'm hoping it helps somebody go, hey, you know what? I'd like to get into local government because I love helping people. I mean, really, that's what we do.
Yep. It's such a great point. And I think that's where local government is the actual government of the people, because you can go into town hall whenever you want. It's right there. It's in your backyard. It's not. And that's the issue. I think when we, in 5th grade, I don't know what they do out in Pennsylvania. I think it's 5th grade here in Washington. We all get the tour of the Capitol, and you walk into the state Capitol, and it's just intimidating, beyond intimidating. And it's built that way. It's built not to go in. It's built to stay out. Like, you don't belong here. Like, this is for special people, and they're all dressed to the nines, and it's all marble, and you don't know where to go. You're totally lost. You're like, and so I'm sure it's even more intimidating in DC. And that's what people think. This is the government where that's where decisions are made, and I don't really have any input. I just get the effects, and they're all negative. Local government is not that. And we've got to tell a different story. We've got to figure out, how do we invite them in? Because that's when, like you say, sometimes they have an issue and they have great ideas to help solve it. Or sometimes they have bad ideas, but then in the process they go, oh, I had no idea that's why it is. And then they can become raving fans. And that's what we need more of. So I love that. Such great. Oh man, so many. I could talk to you for another hour. Thank you. Is there anything you want to close with?
No, I mean, I guess the thing I would want to close with, I know there's, there's a lot of managers, finance directors, who are close to retirement age. And there's just not that many people in the field. I guess because it's not a very exciting, field to be in, I would say differently. But just getting younger people in here, not necessarily younger, but even people who just have never done it before, who want to do the job, who can be qualified to do the job, that, hey, it's not like you're getting paid great money. You can be comfortable, but you can also know that you're providing a service to a local community, that it's very rewarding. And I wish more people would get involved, because I know, I'm not going to last that much longer. I'd love to see more people get involved.
It's a great point for young people. I think that younger generations are far more missional. They're more concerned with purpose and impact than they are with money. And I think that's a great thing. And so they just need to know. I don't think many of them have any idea that local government's even an option for a variety of work. But also, I think there are people in the private sector that burnout's just the biggest thing. And it's like, well, what is burnout? Is it real? I don't think burnout is really being overworked. I think it's doing work that doesn't lead to anything. It's not mission driven. It's not what you don't see how you don't find worth in it. I'll work. I had, again, as a pastor, people put in more hours to volunteering at their church than they did for even their professional work. So work is not the issue. It's purpose. It's passion. It's finding something where you feel that you matter. And that's why, again, the podcast exists, because, again, we're not throwing a lot of parades for local government, but you are doing great work. And I think that if we have that culture internally that reminds ourselves, like, this is great work, even though we face some of the conflicts with residents or electeds or whatever it is, the work that you do is vital and it's inspiring. And so, man, thank you, Bryan, for sharing your story. What an incredible journey you've had, and really unique from the IT angle, and some really good insights today for the audience.
Thank you for having me. It was great talking about local government and talking about Telford Borough, two things I love to talk about.
The stories we share here on the Halting Winter Podcast remind us where government really lives, locally, right here in our cities, our counties, the communities that shape our everyday life. If today's conversation resonated with you, please subscribe and share the episode to help these stories reach others. I'm Seth Winterhalter. You can find me at HaltingWinter.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.